Uh, well, that was a bit weird, wasn't it? A bit weird. Genuinely trying to actually make proper sense of that one. Am I going to sit here and just say for the whole podcast? Potentially. That could be what I'm going to do. There I go. Never said it again. Didn't even mean to do it that time. Spurs have been done there, haven't we? Maybe Marinakis was right. Maybe a move to Tottenham from Nottingham Forest is a step down. Is Marinakis correct? I'm sure he's going to be very happy this evening. I'm sure. Look, before I get into Spurs and before I start having a go at Thomas Frank and having a go at the players, I have to acknowledge at the top, and can we all acknowledge at the top, right, that this is yet again another example of a team that has made us the face on their dartboard. And I can only imagine the sort of energy going into this game from their side would have been much higher than it was from our side because of their strange club vendetta that they have against us. I've done that bit, right? I've acknowledged that, okay? I do think that is a factor in this. Doesn't excuse it all. I'm not saying to give Frank a pass. I'm not saying to give the players a pass. All I'm saying is a needed slice of context for this game is the weird way in which Nottingham Forest view us and will have approached this fixture, all right? I've said that bit. Let me move on from there now and say, what was that? How do we make sense of that after a few weeks, well, a couple of weeks, really, isn't it? Newcastle onwards of starting to think maybe there's a bit of fight here, right? Maybe there's a bit of something about Thomas Frank. Maybe there's a bit of something about this Tottenham team. Yeah? To then see a performance like that today is baffling. It's absolutely baffling. I would say, and let's not revise history here. And I know I'm just talking anecdotally, but what I would say is from the Spurs fans I know who I was chatting to before the game, WhatsApp and stuff, from looking onto Twitter and seeing people's reactions to that announced starting lineup, most people were pretty happy with how Spurs were going into this game. Most people seemed pretty happy with the players chosen, with the potential lineup, and how we were going to go. I feel the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, Spurs were the better team. It's marginal. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think we were miles better, but I think the very, very opening exchanges of the game, Spurs were the better team. Forest got their tails up. They came for us a bit. And then it just felt like all belief, all impetus, whatever it is, I don't know, just got sapped from the side. We started to then see the same old Spurs misplacing passes, unforced errors all over the place, players seemingly not being able to trap the ball anymore. And I'll get on to Thomas Frank, but I do think this is one of those occasions where we do need to look at the players. I honestly do believe that. Like, there's only so many times I can watch these players just knock the ball to nobody, seemingly just, like I say, not be able to do really fundamental things. We've been kind of, waxing lyrical about Archie Gray for the past couple of weeks, right? Is coming, is coming of time and coming of age. Is it his coming of age moment, all this type of thing. And I think that I love Archie Gray. This isn't meant to be a criticism of him. But I'm saying, I think we've sort of been making this point without him even being spectacular. The main thing I've seen people sort of noting about Archie Gray the past couple of weeks is the fact that he just seems like a sound technical footballer, that he can knock the ball about quite nicely. And isn't that nice to have a player that seemingly can pass the ball about, right? That's quite a damning indictment. Like, that's quite a damning indictment of where we are right now, that we're getting excited about a player who, again, let me say, I really like Archie Gray. Whatever the thing was today for their first goal, he shouldn't have called for it, or he should have passed the ball more quickly, been more alert to his situation, or Vicario. I mean, my instant read on it was that Vicario was in the wrong. I think you can slice it both ways, can't you? I said Vicario was wrong on Twitter, and Twitter has made it clear that they don't agree with me, as Twitter likes to do. So, is what it is. Archie Gray, yeah, he's not been great today, but he's a young player. Young players are going to make mistakes. I'm not going to crucify him for that. I like Archie Gray because I think he tries things. I think he's brave, and he's going to learn. And all young players, when you put them under the microscope, are going to make mistakes. They will do. And the young players that play for other clubs, when we go on about Wharton and stuff, who knows if he wouldn't make similar errors if he was playing for Spurs, right? But he plays for 2 Bob Crystal Palace, and there's not as much pressure on him there to perform at all times. That aside, right, the point I'm trying to make is the overwhelming excitement about Archie Gray has been the fact he can knock the ball about, right? What is it? The coaching? Is it the players that we're scouting in the first place? Is it that they have such a low technical floor, low technical foundation? Is it the way in which we're trying to play? I don't know, because I don't think this is just a Frank. No, I know. I'm not going to say I'm not going to second guess myself here. This is not a Thomas Frank issue. This is not all on Thomas Frank. The players, the coaching, the way in which they seem to be totally unable to knock a ball around to one another. That was happening under Ange Postecoglou. That was happening at times under Antonio Conte. Again, I look at Forest again today. They're a good side. They've got some really good players. Like that midfield of theirs is serious. That Elliot Anderson, I'll be honest, Elliot Anderson is one of those that I've been hearing sort of a lot of people talking about. I had no idea who he was, if I'm being brutally honest. I'm not a football scout. Like, I'm not paid to know whatever, how decent or not every single young player is. I generally wait until I watch them myself. I don't go out my way to watch them because I don't use football for that type of thing. I'm not an analyst. I'm an emotional blowhard Spurs fan, and that's the level on which I engage with football for the most part. But I try to take in and I try to sort of appreciate the skills or whatever of other players, especially when they're playing against Spurs, or if they're playing, if I'm hate watching Arsenal or whatever. Elliot Anderson is clearly very talented, clearly a very, very good player. The sort of, I don't at all mean this as side eye at Bergvall. I'm just simply saying he reminds me quite a bit of Bergvall in a certain way, but quite a bit better. I feel like he's kind of got the drive and intensity of Bergvall, but perhaps a more sound technical floor. I think Bergvall is a technically decent player, but his passing isn't always the crispest. I don't always think he used the ball in the best way. Elliot Anderson, for example, though, does seem to be much better. And Sangare obviously has scored that absolute worldie against us. Just a generally really, really good player. It seemed to be. 2 of them are really, really good. Obviously, Gibbs White ahead of them, who, funnily enough, considering he was the player we were after all summer, looks like the least spectacular option out of them. But still a decent enough performance from him today. Obviously, we can count our blessings that he didn't do an Eze on us, didn't get a hat-trick against us. But as I was saying, sort of when I watched the Villa game, Villa against Arsenal the other week, one of the things that stuck out for me about Aston Villa was the amount of decent, sound, technical players that they had. Players who had the ability to just knock the ball about, just play football in a really basic way, really nicely. And then on top of that, obviously they have a brilliant manager in Unai Emery. They do, and so they can build on that. But when their foundation is one that is pretty sound already, probably makes life a lot easier, doesn't it? But look, this Spurs team, I don't know if we have that. I honestly don't know if we have that. I look at a player like Bentancur today again, just hiding, just absolutely hiding. He, to me, is a critical replacement. Critically, we have to replace him. I don't. It's really hard. It's really hard, because I don't like doing all the proper football, man. They haven't got the the minerals. They're scared. Where's the passion? All that type of thing. But it's one of those where I kind of feel that way today. At the end of the game, I know I've been digging him out quite a bit lately. I've been digging out the fact that, we maybe make exceptions for a player in Pedro Porro, a defender who can't defend, right? But at the same time, he is basically, what was he doing at the end? He was shouting and bawling at all of his teammates. Like when he got the yellow card at the end of the game, he's gone in, he's clumsily tried to, win the ball back. But still, his immediate thing is he's standing up saying to his teammates, what's going on? Where is everyone? What are we doing here? And there were plenty of moments when I just feel that way watching this Tottenham team. We can have these sort of almost like these little corners turned, if you like. Brentford was a good game, and I'm not going to go back and say, oh, Brentford are awful. And Brentford are a good game. We played well. It was a good result. Slavia Prague, look, we should be beating them. We should be, right? But we still did it. It's good to win in the Champions League. But I guess the required context is that they're a Gubbins team. They are. Look, they are. Right? Whatever. I'm a problematic Anglocentric pig, but they are Gubbins. Forest are. They're 17th in the league, and people have been saying that. I think, if we're being honest about it, it's probably a bit of a false position. They've spent a lot of money, huge wage bill, blah blah blah. Not had a very good start to the season, have they? I'm not going to go into that one anymore. I'm simply going to say that as it is. Not had a very good start to the season. And look, they've brought in Sean Dyche to do Sean Dyche things. But they didn't really Dyche ball us today, to be honest. They just largely outplayed us. It felt like every time they went forwards, they could score. I didn't really get that feeling from Spurs at all. This felt like one of those games where I could have watched Spurs for 2-3 hours today and they wouldn't have scored. It just felt like that. It felt like there was no real invention there. And it's really hard. This is the thing. This is what I'm saying. It's so hard to make sense of this. It's really hard to quantify this because Xavi Simons, right? We've started to incorporate him into the side. We've been saying we need to have Simons in there. And like I say, for that first 10, 15 minutes, it felt like, he was really up for it. He was running around. He was all over the pitch. He was making himself available. He was getting stuck in. He was trying to make things happen. Sort of laying the ball off, moving into space, looking to be that link man, looking to make things happen all over the pitch. No reflection on him, but the players around him, they didn't seem to be on the same page. Mohamed Kudus, I think, is a fantastic player. I'll do this in the players at the end. I'm not going to lie. I was slightly annoyed by some of what he was doing today, if I'm honest. I can go into that at the end, but again, to say this is all on the players would be disingenuous. And I've just spent, nearly a quarter of an hour sort of laying into the players for a part. There is a part of me that does that. I feel that if I was to cut this, I think I just, my feeling right now is I would apportion more blame to the players right now, if I'm honest. But then 2-0 down, 2-0 down, chasing the game. And what does Thomas Frank do? He brings on Polinia, Ben Davis. He takes Jed Spence off, brings on Ben Davis and Lucas Bergvall. Fine. No objection to that. But Polinia and Ben Davis, when you've got attacking options on the bench, you've got players there who, all right, maybe aren't game changers, but still, what's to say Brennan Johnson doesn't want to come on and have a point to prove? What's to say that Mathis Tell, buoyed by his midweek kind of performance in the Champions League. Yeah, it was a small performance, but it was still, I think, a decent one. The fact he's been incorporated into the Champions League squad, although there's some confusion about that. I don't know if I think I'd seen it was like maybe more a temporary inclusion than a whatever. I don't know. Still, played a Champions League game for Spurs. What's to say he wouldn't fancy it? He often does well when he comes on. But no, we brought on Ben Davies and Palhinha. I know there was some discussion that Spence might have been injured. He didn't look particularly happy to be taken off. I know that's the coach's job, the manager's job, to make those difficult decisions that the players don't want them to do. But still, you have to kind of question how necessary a call that was to make. Thomas Frank again approached this game, and I flagged this in the pre-match, in the preview. I acknowledge the fact that English is Thomas Frank's second language. It might be his third language. I don't know. It's not his first language. Let's put it that way. And it's very, I think it is a worthy consideration to make, that you can't just sit there and say, why isn't he saying this? Why isn't he saying that? In a high pressured environment like a press conference, when English is not his first language. However, what I would say is that consistently, and were this not kind of backed up by his approach to games in general and just the way he generally speaks about football, it does give me pause for thought, and it does give me cause for concern when I still see Thomas Frank in press conferences say all the kind of, he said it at the start of the season, we're going to lose games. One thing that's for sure, we're going to lose games. He said not long ago, we can maybe have 10, 12 games where we're going to play well every single season. And again, before this game, he spent a not insignificant part of the press conference talking about the fact that what top clubs need to do and what we need to do is weather bad patches. And again, we're going to have bad patches. We're going to have bad patches. That's guaranteed. Just stop going on about this stuff. And I get it. What he's saying is likely true. I don't know so much about the 12 games thing. I don't really agree with him on the, I don't think a Tottenham Hotspur manager should be saying Spurs are only going to have 12 good games a season. Jokes aside, Spurs gallows humour and all that stuff aside, right? I think, if you're managing Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, don't care what the Arsenal fans will say or the Chelsea fans will say. It's a big job. It's a huge club. You've got to be setting your sights higher than that. I don't like to hear a Tottenham manager come out and say that type of thing. But in terms of him saying, we need to learn how to weather bad patches, him saying we're going to lose games, that's guaranteed. Yeah, sure. The rational side of us all understands that. We all know that. But all of this stuff, this whole circus, the whole point of media press conferences and stuff is to set the tone for a football club, is to set the tone for your project, is to set the tone for your ambitions, your approach, all of it, right? And when you're constantly setting your baseline as we're going to lose, it's not always going to be good for us. What is the bleed down? What is the bleed through of that? What is the bleed through of that? And people can say this is all nonsense. People can say this doesn't mean anything. But there are plenty of examples of other managers that will consistently, every single time they're in a press conference, say, we will do everything we can to win. The main ambition here is to win everything. Every time we go onto the pitch, we're thinking, how are we going to win this game? And we don't get that energy from Thomas Frank. We never get that energy from him. And he continues to do this type of thing. And it's really, really frustrating because I don't want to be one of these people that sits here and flip-flops every single week. We have a couple of good results and I'm saying, have we turned a bit of a corner? Is it good? And then he does this type of thing. And you're sat here being like, again, what is it? And I know, I get it. The truly rational take on all this is what we should do as fans is step back and say, well, give him time and then we'll see. We can't sack him after this long. However, blah, 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 blah. I completely understand all that. But again, it completely undermines and misunderstands the fact that football is an emotional game. Of course, it's an emotional game. I record these podcasts straight after games of football. That's why I just find it such a woeful misinterpretation of a lot of what it is that I say on here. When I get the comments 2-3 days later down the line, and that's maybe more on me. Maybe I need to think about that. But I try to make it abundantly clear that these are reaction podcasts, right? If you want the more rational take, if you want a more open and balanced discussion, the 2 pods I do during the week are generally more home for that type of thing. This is my blowhard straight after a game. I'm annoyed. I'm a Spurs fan, right? And that's what I'm trying to vent here. And I feel that connection is made with people who enjoy this and appreciate this format, right? So when I am here flip-flopping after every single game, it's because it's an emotional reaction to it. And we're all going to have an emotional reaction to this stuff because we're football fans primarily. I mean, some people perhaps, do appreciate football on a different level right now. But to get back to my point, to try and sort of make sense of what it is I'm trying to say and how I feel about this, I just feel that what's always stuck with me. I think they said it on the Athletic pod. I can't remember if it was Moore or if it was Danny Kelly. But somebody said it feels that every single time Thomas Frank is asked a question, he gets the answer wrong. And that is living rent-free in my head. And I kind of feel that way about it. Again, like I say, I don't feel like there's tons wrong with his approach in the first place to this game. I don't. But again, the questions that were asked of him during this game, how do I solve this? How do we make the breakthrough here? It just feels like it's always lacking. And I do feel like that is on the players as well. How much of that is a bleed through from what it is that Thomas Frank says or does with them? Who knows? That remains to be seen. But look, it's difficult. It's difficult to make sense of this. It's difficult to make sense, really, of how I feel about this. Sack Thomas Frank. Sack him now. Get rid of him. Who comes in? Who honestly comes in right now? I was having a good conversation. I went to Big John Bass's 40th birthday today, I think, but he had a celebration in London yesterday. Happy birthday, John Bass. And there I was chatting to sort of the lads there, just trying to make sense of it and what they think about Spurs, how they feel about it. Do we want Pochettino back? Like, do we wait? Do we give it Pochettino? And obviously, I think that the majority of sort of Spurs lads there were like, well, yeah, emotionally speaking, Pochettino is our guy. There's going to be that unfinished business there. But equally, everybody reflects on the fact, is it right? Is it healthy? Let me separate my love for Mauricio Pochettino and everything aside. Should you go back? All that type of thing. I think there are legitimate questions to be had there. Regardless, he's not going to be available till the summer. Xavi Alonso, pretty sure has been, I don't know if it's official, communication official yet, but it seems to be the world's worst kept secret that he's been let go from Madrid. Does he wait for Liverpool? Does he wait to see what Slot's doing? Do we try and chuck everything that we can at him? Do we heed the warnings from similar situations in the past? Andre Villas-Boas. Because it feels like there's a certain AVB type vibe coming out of this. Did brilliantly at Leverkusen, has taken that step up to a club like Madrid. Madrid, we know, is a famously toxic side and everything, but it does feel like even some of the more, say, down the middle type takes on Xavi Alonso's tenure there have been, it just felt like he was a bit out of his depth. But that's Madrid. This is Spurs. So, is that a concern for us? Maybe not. Maybe not. Does Xavi Alonso come to Spurs? Can we make him an offer that he doesn't want to refuse right now? Does he even want to have a job right now? Does he want to go straight from the Madrid job into the Tottenham job? Don't know. So then what happens? Matty Wells is off to the United States. by all accounts. If we get rid of Frank, does Justin Cochrane fancy it? Does he go with Frank? Do we fancy Justin Cochrane? I don't know. Like, he's very, very highly rated, very highly lauded within both the England setup and, you know, within Premier League circles and everything. Do we give him a go? Do we hand the reins to him? I don't know. What do we do? What do we do? What is the question? What is the answer? Even the question is, what do we do? That's why you come. That's why you come here, isn't it? For that quality level of insight, that sharp wit, that intellect. Let's see what everyone else is saying. I've got lots and lots and lots of people saying stuff to me here. So let's have a look. K9 again says, most annoyed I've been this season. Pre-game, most people were happy with the lineup. Starting to think the lineup is not the issue. StewB55 says, just when we look to be building a bit of momentum, that goes and happens. Only Tottenham. Exactly that, mate. Exactly that. That's, you know, entirely how I feel about it. That's why I'm kind of, you know, making this whole point of like, I can't make sense of it. You know, I don't know what, like, you know, I don't know what I'm supposed to be thinking about this. I really don't. I don't get it. Gary Bradley says, I genuinely don't know what to say. We look absolutely abysmal in every department. I think we overrate these players and manager way too much. Do we wait for Madrid to sack Alonso? Desperate. I'm not sure people overrate Thomas Frank, to be honest with you, mate, but I do question how much we do, say, rate some of our players, a lot of our players. Yeah. Casual FPL says, I'd sack him for the Bergvall, Polina and Davis sub, but with Liverpool, Palace away, there is no way Frank lasts that. Who knows though, mate? Who knows? Who knows if the club, if the hierarchy fancy it? You know, we keep sort of saying this, there's no way he's going to last it, but maybe he does. Kevski07 says he has to go. Zeros and Ones says, how many teams have we given their best game this season? Yeah, you have to start asking, don't you, mate? Like, when is it a them thing and an us thing? Stel Morrison says, Frank talks about progress, but today we had no cutting edge and zero calm at the back. Every attack against us felt like they were going to score. Yes, and they did. So what is improving? I mean, it did feel like we were improving a bit, didn't it, for the past few games? But we've just, I don't know, seemingly gone completely back on that. It really is hard to. I've been saying this. I know I've been saying this for the whole of this podcast, but it really is hard to make sense of this. It really is hard to quantify how this team is the team that we've seen over the past couple of weeks, where we've been, I've been, you've been, we've all been waxing lyrical about them, about what it is that they're capable of doing. I don't know, man. Jack Underhill says, that should be him gone. The players look so over. See if Porro or Kudus can get a cross in. Uber whiffy. Yeah, uber whiffy indeed. Big Y says, where do we even go from here? Just feels like yet again we're sleepwalking through another season that was written off 3 games in. PG says, simply not happening under Frank, is it? You tell me, mate. You tell me. Don't ask me that. That's what I'm trying to make sense of. Title of this pod says, trying to make sense of Spurs. Don't come to a man asking to make sense of something and I expect some sense, right? That doesn't make any sense at all, does it? I don't think any of this makes any sense. What is sense after all? Jack Darkin says he had to go after Woolwich, had to go after Fulham, had to go after Day, but he won't. Jordan Emmett says, that was terrible, but you were looking healthy, Jack. Oh, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Look at that. Me reading out the compliments I'm getting there. You know, that's pathetic. What a preening narcissist. You'd expect more from a man that does a podcast on his own, wouldn't you? Deuces Wild says, diabolical performance. Sick of watching Kudus take 5 touches when 1 pass would do. Mate, honestly, that's, you know what I was saying a bit earlier on when I was saying like there were certain just little things about Kudus that were starting to annoy me. I do think he's a fine player. I think he's very, very good. That, though, I called it dilly-dallying. Dilly-dallying on the ball. Just be a bit more decisive. That may be to do with the fact that, you know, he perhaps doesn't have the best players around him. I don't know. It was just, it did just frustrate me. I agree with you there. Stel Morrison also says, if Ben Davies coming off the bench is the answer, what exactly was the question? Maybe the question was, do you want to keep your job, Thomas? Because, you know, Callum Ridgen says, would rather spend the day watching the new Animal Farm. Would rather spend the day watching the new Animal Farm back to back than sit through another Frank game. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the trailer for, it's Andy Serkis as well. What's he doing, man? What is it they call it in the trailer? It's like the reimagining the Orwell masterpiece. And they basically, I don't know if it's Illumination Studios or whoever, but they've basically turned Animal Farm into like a Despicable Me type property. Like The Sing. If you've seen any of the Sing films that Illumination also do, it's like that. Comedy pigs. Seth Rogen. Oh, maybe they're going to send us off to the slaughterhouse. Oh, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll smoke some pot. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's Animal Farm, mate. It's supposed to be bleak. It's supposed to be miserable. You know? The moment Boxer gets taken off to the glue factory is genuinely like awful. It's horrendous. Like if I believe in this film, it's the pigs and the horses and whatever driving like sports cars around the grounds of the farm and all, like, you know, what is this? And this isn't Old Man Shouts at Cloud. I watched when I was growing up. I watched the one from the 1950s, and I appreciated that. Like people then in like the 80s, 90s weren't saying, oh, we better kind of, you know, make things bright and perma happy for kids. Stick him in front of that. Stick him in front of Watership Down. Stick him in front of that 1950s Animal Farm. Like, give him a bit of misery. Kid, right? You're here now. You're in the big bad world. It's horrible. You know, like the bit in Peep Show. Go see the second half, mate. It's shit. It's a bit of that. This is, mate, why have you brought that up today? Why have I got to talk about the bastardization of Animal Farm? And on top of this, Tottenham Hotspur performance. What's going on? Yeah. And on Nomad says, the wins are flukes. The manner of the losses are consistent. Ooh, that's quite, I quite like that. Well, I mean, I don't like it. I don't like, what I'm saying is, that's quite good. That's quite good. You might hear me, and on Nomad, right? You might hear me in the week saying, when I did my stream on the weekend, somebody said to me, and that'll be you. That'll be your thought, your good thought, your intellectual property there that I will be bastardizing. Me and my midwit takes will be siphoning that off and regurgitating it elsewhere. Get used to it. Like Illumination Studios or whoever it is that's responsible for that new Animal Farm. That's what that is your Animal Farm, and I am the pig. I am the pig in a sports car, right? Jack Underhill also says, not the biggest point of today, but is Kudus contractually obliged to not make a pass until it's too late? Mr. Stephen Stotch said after the Arsenal, he should. Wait, he didn't say the. Sorry, Stephen. He didn't say the Arsenal. He said after Arsenal he should have gone now, and we should get Redknapp to the. I'm not having. Mate, come on. Redknapp hasn't managed anyone for ages, for years. Like, I get it. I'm not. This bloke is worse than Nuno and Ange by a mile. No game plan, no tactics, no idea. Get him gone. I mean, I don't know if it's. To me, it's sort of similar to Nuno, which is pretty damning, isn't it? I don't know. Kevsky says Richarlison playing 90 minutes was criminal. Yeah, he looked absolutely shagged, didn't he? I think that's the technical term. Can we call it that? Yeah, he didn't look great, did he? I Live Lily White says, thank goodness you're back, Jack. How on earth do we process that? Is it DEFCON 5? Wouldn't interim really be any worse than that dross we were served up today? Can we get rid of Vicario now, please? A lot of questions there, I Live Lily White. How do we process that? Again, I would like to know. I genuinely, I can't make sense of it. And on Nomad's point, I think was quite good though. The wins feel like flukes. The losses are pretty much consistent. That's the pattern, isn't it? The pattern is, as PG said earlier, not happening under Frank, is it? It's just kind of got that whiff about it. It's got that whiff about it a bit. It's tough though, isn't it? Because from the outside, people are just like, you don't give him any time. I promise I'm not just doing this as a humble brag thing, but I did Mark Chappers' Monday Night Football thing the other night, last week or the week before, I can't remember. And Chris Sutton was basically saying, and look, the thing is, right, I give it all the big talk on here. When you sat there, right, and there's the producer saying, right, get ready, you got to go on and talk now. And you've got like a guy who is, he's a particularly he's a spiky media personality, right, Chris Sutton. And when you've got him there saying, you lot don't give your managers any time, how can you be moaning about the manager wanting to go already? You can't just be like, shut up, mate. Shut up. What do you know? We watch them every week and they're terrible. And we've just got a feeling. You can just tell when you're watching a team that the manager isn't, because do you know what I mean? That sort of stuff can be just eviscerated. It's true. It's true, really, isn't it? Like, look, can we just be, let's be honest here. I think we all know that it's not really working, is it? I'm not gonna say it definitely won't. I'm not gonna say that he won't be able to turn this around, blah, 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 blah. But right now, it doesn't feel very good at all. And I don't know if it ever will get much better. Jack Darkin says, Newcastle was a terrible performance and Romero's brilliance papered over the lack of chance creation. Agree. Said that at the time and I got pelters through it. Thank you very much. We demand Glitterhoof. Interesting. Says, we had 2 extra days of rest. They have had 3 managers this season. Jesus Christ. This is an interesting point. Kugo says, terrified of giving Frank the transfer window to bring in his kind of players. This would set us so far back. All we can hope is that the club stick to their promise that we are kind of building a team that shouldn't matter who is at the helm. It should be interchangeable, so we're signing players that will be of benefit to any manager. How's that worked out for us, though, Jack? I hear you say. Not very well, has it? Not very well at all. Again, look, the only thing I do say back to that, as I've been saying throughout it, is what do we do? What do we do? Who is the interim? Who is the interim that steps in? I don't know. I Love Lily White says, appreciate the pod as always. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate you tuning in. Well, it is kind of isn't it? A stream. This is a stream. At least the people that are listening to this live, you can say they've tuned in, right? But do you tune into a podcast? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think one tunes into a podcast today. Bin Guy says, in capitals, This club stinks. I'm not going to argue with that. And on Nomad also says, aside from City, have we beaten a single team that finished in the top 10 last season? Don't know. Someone else can say that. Seven Seals says, get him gone. My grass is blue says, disgusting display, period. Bob Rudge Coys says, we were terrible against Newcastle, then beat two shockers. Haven't beaten a decent side since City in August. Jack Underhill says, positive thought. I'm a temporary City fan again. Yep. Ex-casual FPL says, if you want Frank out, hit that like button. I agree. Go on. Like. There's a lot of you watching it. Come on. Let's have some more likes on there, please. Please. Don't make me beg. Please. Seven Seal says, what is the plan though, Jack? Yeah. I'd like to know. Hello, Newman says, hopefully Inter Milan scouts and director of football didn't watch that Vicario performance. We need to upgrade ASAP. I've said lots on Vicario on here before. I don't think I'm going to say any more about him. There is not, my grass is blue says, there is not a single thing that we did well today. Seven Seal says, what type of goal do we try to score? Well, we try and whip the ball in, don't we? Pretty much. We put it out wide and try and run it in. And yeah. My grass is blue says also, that was no fault of Archie's. Vic is an idiot. You had it right. Yes. 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 John Lax says, I'm not a football scout, but I know how good Anderson is. Well, good for you, John Lax. MTA Maritz says, Archie called for the ball and had an easy one-touch pass to Kuti. He tried a two-touch and said it will happen, but you can't put that on Vic. You can put it on Vic a bit. I'm sorry, you can put it on Vic a bit. It's equally as important that a senior player, like the goalkeeper, is on top of the situation, can read the fact that Gray has a man on him, doesn't just knock the ball to him. And I say we can say that because Vicario has form for that. Vicario has form for poor distribution, for poor awareness. It's not a one-off. It's a pattern. It's a pattern. I'm sorry. You can slice it down the middle and maybe apportion some blame to both of them. I choose to blame Vicario because I have a massive agenda against him. Jozo Bozo says, there are lots of players that can follow Frank out the door. We should be paying Inter Milan to take Vicario off our hands. JC Kelt says, so much work needs to be done on this squad. We're mid-table because that's what has been built over the last 5 years. Yep. Steve Dallas Cowboys says, so Sunderland's unbeaten streak continues against Newcastle in Premier League and Mafia FC leading by Triple H Cook Chicken. Right, okay. I don't. When people start talking about Cook Chickens FC and stuff, come on, man. Right. You can insult Tottenham Hotspur. You can insult Tottenham Hotspur by just simply saying, I don't think Tottenham Hotspur are very good. Ha, ha, ha. I support insert London rival team here. All this stuff, spuds, cooked chickens. You're just debasing yourself, mate. Like, you have the hill. You have the position of power right now, right? And you're allowing us to take the hill when you say stuff like that. That's all I'm saying, right? You've not seen our cavalry out there in the woodlands further down. You've not used your high vantage point, and you've gone in too hard. You've been silly. Okay? And that's what you've done there. Sorry, mate. Phil Mayo says, get him out. The players share the blame, but there's no ideas. You can't sanitize this. We're chasing the game and he's making defensive subs. Yeah, I mean, horrific, isn't it? Lots and lots of stuff from Seven Seals. I'm going to have to put you on a timeout here, mate, because it's now just starting to spam me with stuff about Ange. So, yeah, sorry, mate. Don't need any of that, to be honest. The last, so JM numbers and letters says the last time Frank beat Daesh, Prince Andrew was still a respected member of royalty. He's actually not Prince Andrew anymore. So, you know. JM numbers and letters also says, get Stuttgart manager Hoeneß. He'd be perfect, and they've sold all their best players. Know nothing about him. Don't know. Yeah, let's have a look. The whole bloody thing's just... So Blue Nose says, I want Frank out because I don't want him having any influence over January signings. There's nothing worth persisting with here, and I can't stomach signing Kevin Schade. Is that? Yeah. Durr says, there are only 3 teams worse than us in this league at present. I did work this out the other day off air with Tom Foynes. We were going on about this. I think we did work out there were maybe 5 to 7 that were worse than us, if not probably a bit worse than us, which isn't great. But I do think there's a bit more than 3 teams that are worse than us. Just saying, just in my opinion. That's all. I'm allowed an opinion, aren't I? Flicks and tricks. Our players aren't intelligent enough to work with a manager that has an approach. We need a vibes manager like Redknapp used to be. Someone to keep it really simple. I don't disagree, mate, but that's really depressing, isn't it? Really depressing in the year of our Lord 2025 going on 2026. We're still simply saying professional footballers, individuals who earn riches that would probably make them richer than most kings of all eras past and present, perhaps, aren't capable of doing like a really crucial part of their job. Don't know. Who is it? Like who's scouting? Who's scouting for someone like Nottingham Forest that they can pick up a player like Elliot Anderson? Why aren't Spurs in the conversation for that? Do you know what I mean? Bugville's great. Gray's great. Why aren't we also getting Anderson? Why won't we get... I think we did go after Wharton, actually, to be fair. If I recall correctly, I seem to believe we were in the conversation for Wharton as well, but I'm not 100% on that one. Also, where are the Gus Hiddings types in the game these days? The blokes that seem to be available mid-season and love to rescue teams for halves. Well, flicks and tricks. I saw somebody posit quite an interesting theory on why you don't really have an era of many ex-players who go on to be managers anymore. Do you know what I mean? It used to be kind of like pretty much all of the top managers used to be top players. So and the cycle continues. Some people posit that they passed into an era where players just earned so much money, and because football is so oversaturated and because it takes up so much of their life now, let's say 2012 onwards, right? Let's go with the Mayan calendar. Let's say the Mayan end of the world, right? 2012 onwards, everything sort of changed a bit. Everything went online. Salaries just in football went to another level. Transfer fees went to another level. And as such, when players retire, they've got enough money to be comfortable, more than enough money to be comfortable. And for a large part, they don't really want an awful lot to do with football anymore. They'll go on every now and again if they want an ego stroke and talk at the World Cup or something like that. But do they want the hassle of being a manager? Not many of them do. I'm not saying that's exactly the reason why, but that's what I have seen posited. That is a suggestion I have seen made. And I find that quite interesting. Welcome in Pieces says, hello, mate. Imagine how good we could be with Forest's midfield. Yeah. He also asks if I've had a new haircut. I haven't at all. Maybe it's just grown to a part where it looks all right. Unless you're saying it's terrible, then thanks. Wilson T says, evening, Jack, what were the first subs about? I would like to know, mate. I really would like to know. I couldn't tell you. It's pretty awful, wasn't it? Now getting asked how good I thought Peep Show and everything was. People liking my Seth Rogen impression. Thank you.
Seth Rogen. I'm just confused. Confused or just cynical.
Yeah. Sort of it flows into Yoda. But he is a bit Yoda-y, isn't he, the way he talks? I don't know. John Lax also says, have you noticed all the really good managers have defensive... all the really good managers were defensive midfielders. I haven't noticed that, but we'll see. Do I want to do the players today? I feel like I've sort of gunned the players a lot. I can't really be bothered, if I'm honest, because a lot of the time I just say, he was all right, he didn't have much to do, blah, you know? I think sometimes some games lend themselves to it. Other games, when you're not sort of watching it analytically like I am, when you're watching sort of through my plebeian gaze. Plebeian is the American way of saying it, isn't it? Plebeian is what I would say. Either works. So it's an international society, isn't it? The internet and all that. We're talking to the world. Why does Tottenham have to do this? You know? Why does it have to be this way? Why can't they get, like, this is the point I was making before, right? Just allow me to have a tantrum for a second. The point I was making before is, like, with Spurs, even when we get in a manager like Thomas Frank, right? The geography teacher, Times New Roman, hello, I have an itchy woolly jumper type manager. Flav made that good point. Flav said, at the start of the season, when we first brought Frank in, he was saying it's going to be hard to reconcile the fact that you got somebody like, Ange, it's all blood and thunder, guts and glory, chest beating and all this type of thing. And then Thomas Frank walks in like, hello everybody. It's true, isn't it? But we expected, right? We didn't hope, we expected that at least Thomas Frank would be able to bring a level of calm stability, a certain rigid, say, boringness to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, right? He hasn't even been able to do that. I'm sorry, he hasn't. What have we had? What have we had thus far from Thomas Frank? Chaos. Just chaos. Inconsistency. And I just, can't it just be all right? Can't we just be like, oh, we've had a couple of good performances now? And what I'm moaning, why can't it just be that what I'm moaning about tonight is, it would have been nice to have won today, but 1-1 away at the City ground, I'll take that. Do you know what I mean? Like that's it feels like that's what today should have been. 1-1 away at the City ground. Oh, I thought we might win it. I thought because we've been in good form and all that type of thing, we might get the better of them. But we haven't done. We've lost 3-0. We've been absolutely battered. We could have been done 5 or 6. I don't get it. I don't get how it veers this wildly pathetic. Pathetic. It was pathetic. Today was pathetic. It was awful. It's just awful. Just be at least just be all right, Spurs, just be all right. But it's either we're quite good and we're knocking the ball about nicely, and look how exciting it is. Look how exciting it is to have Xavi Simons sort of, growing into the sort of player that we all hoped he would be. And look at Archie Gray knocking the ball about. This is exciting. Look at this partnership. Look at the way Kalamawani and Kudus and Richarlison are linking up and rotating, and it's starting to look fluid. It's starting to look dynamic. Look at Spence back to his best. Spence is kind of, knocking the ball about. He's coming inside. He's going on the outside. He's becoming that sort of left-sided player that we've needed. Vicario, he's gotten over the booze. It's felt like he's becoming a bit more... No, it all just goes out the window. It all just goes out the window for no reason whatsoever. And there is no making sense of that. The only sense that you can make from this is that you support Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and this is just what we do. This is what we've always done. This is what we will do, probably until we're all in the ground. And, you know, there we have it. And that's kind of the sense that we make from that. But you gotta love them. You gotta love them, those plucky lily whites. That's just what we do. And we have our gallows humor and we have a laugh about it. Because it's all about our mates and it's all about the experiences and it's all about the journey and all that. And that's true. I'm not devaluing that. That is true, as much as I'm adopting this cynical tone about it, right? But it's bloody annoying. It's really bloody annoying. I'm going to leave it there because I am now just moaning. I'm being a big baby. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, as per usual. If you are watching on YouTube right now, please drop it a like. This week, I did give everybody a glimpse behind the paywall. If you like the previews, if you like ad-free podcasts, come to Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpod. You'll also find an archive of old evergreen pods on there, which you can plug into and enjoy. You can tune into and enjoy at any point. If you are listening to this podcast, if you're listening to the recorded version on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts, please leave a rating. Please leave a review. I really do appreciate how much the likes have jumped up on Spotify, but there could be a lot more. I'm just saying. There's a lot more of you that listen to the podcast regularly than have given it, than have been bothered. They've been bothered to just click on a little star icon in your Spotify player. Right, so please just take that second and just give it a like, and it will allow more people to listen to it and enjoy, or say, why did you recommend that Melt podcaster to me? But other than that, be back tomorrow. Don't know who I'm speaking to yet, so be ready. I'm gonna WhatsApp somebody soon and say, come and do the podcast tomorrow. I don't need to be talking about this now, do I? Come on, you Spurs, up the Spurs. Yes, we're useless, but whatever.